All right. So I can email Barbara actually. I'll do the contact duties. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. All right. It is 1 o'clock. So let's start, and I will hand over to Robert and Chris for our opening karakia and Rio and sign.
Karakia tātai. Kia tau mai te maramatanga. Kia tau mai te rangi Mārie. Kia tau mai te kaha me te aroha. Mō tēnei kaupapa. Hui e kai ki.
Good. So thank you, Chris and Robert. Well, welcome everybody to the June Community Board meeting. Do we have any apologies? No, we're all appear to be here. Any leave of absences? Robert, I know you need to be gone by 3:30.
Yeah, 3:40 for myself.
3:30, that's fine. Anybody else? No, lovely. All right. Well, I will move that the leave of absence need to be. Oh, no, it doesn't apply, does it? No, great. So we'll move on. So moving into public forum, and we have Bill joining us today. Welcome, Bill.
2 short subjects. Could I have 5 minutes apiece? Plenty of room.
No.
Okay, I'll put it in 5 then.
All right.
First
It's a
off, I
challenge.
put a service request in to take you better care of Anatoki Track Road. I put a lot of energy into getting the roads fixed, and it's pothole, and they don't seem to be grading it far enough out, so it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller and less material to work with, and it's just unfair to have to almost stop to get through the potholes. Second off, I've been boating all my life, and most all the launching facilities I've been at, from Alaska into Mexico, have had some sort of, especially in New Zealand, Littleton and Waikawa Bay had a launching finger. I've seen so many people fall off their trailers or have to wade up to their waist to get onto their boat out there. Now, some might say, well, you need to harden up and learn how to launch your boat. That's not true. I've talked to a lot of people, and they're sick and tired of 4 generations of having to stand in the water, or the process of launching your boat out there, where the commercial aspect is taking over the whole thing and eliminating 30% of our recreational spaces out there. To launch your boat, right now, I've just bought an Nolux 25. I have to put it in the water, untie it. I have to get up the boat that high. I'm 7 years old. My shoulders hurt, my knees hurt. I can't do that. I like to go sailing by myself. To do that is risking a health and safety issue. I talked to Mr. Chan, he agreed. That was months ago. Nothing's happened since then. But this plan, it's forcing all the poor people, the mom and dad boaters out of there. These are all luxury yacht sizes here. They've only got 5 little spaces for the average boat of the 30 or so in that size out there. You're eliminating this silly dock, the one over there on the side. You put it down in the middle like Motueka's, and you could launch 4 to 6 boats at a time with no hang up at all. You might have to, rope your boat around the necks, but it just makes sense not to put one little skinny one over there. I've checked, it's only 2 meters narrower than Motueka's, and the cost would be the same, right down the middle. And for holding off after they come in, if there's 2 beaches there, you could put an extension on that last one there and be able to have waiting people there. Anyway, if you look at Motueka's launching facility there, right down the middle, it's 60 meters long. I have seen at least 10 boats there on the Nolux 22 Society race day line up there, all being very nice and calm and mannerful, and taking their turns to retrieve their boats and launch their boats too. Out there now, I have seen 20 or 30, well, up to 20 trailers and boats out there, and people don't come in at the same time. They go out the same time and they come back at the same time, because that's when the fishing's good. And so I've seen people, there's only one little launch ramp right there. So to launch my boat, if I could get on the trailer, I have to put it down there, climb on it, go all the way around there, put it there, go back, get the trailer, back there in the reverse process. I have to spend 15 to 20 minutes and risk health and safety to launch my boat to go sailing. And I just don't want to do that. I got rid of my yacht because the cost of keeping in the water without local facilities to wash and care for our boats. And I kept my boat for 6 months, for 6 years in the compound over there, which cost me $6,000 to $7,000 because I had to have it insured. That's my say.
Excellent.
We need a safe launching facility.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time today, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate you coming in.
Beautiful day out there.
Okay. I'll come and see you about that one. Any declarations of interest today? Or any agenda items? Okay, so Grant is declared interest in number 2042. Okay. Anyone else? Lovely, just Grant, they don't need to move to, they can just declarations. Confirmation of the minutes from May. So the minutes of the Golden Bay Community Board meeting held on Monday, the 8th of May, 2023, be confirmed as the truth and correct record of the meeting. Can I have a mover for that, please? Does that Celia? Great. Moved by Celia, seconded by Henry. All those in favour? Aye. Excellent. Carried. Thank you. So no presentations today. That brings us into the chair's report today. So items from May public forum, we can just take those as read unless anyone has any questions.
Yeah, what is happening with the right naming place?
It's in the council process.
Because I know the Mahua MKM is on their agenda today.
Yep,
So,
that's because the applicants came back with a different name.
again, after we talked the other day.
Kim's probably better to speak to this than I am.
So, yeah, so the applicants did come back with a different proposition to what was suggested by Manawhena Wiki Mahua. I then run Maggie to check that. She has indicated that one of those options would be likely to be acceptable.
Right.
And and that is a matter that will be going to board for consideration today.
Margie.
Sorry, yeah.
Does anybody on Zoom, Jess?
Yes, we have Joe Richards and Catherine Hubbard on Zoom today.
Yeah, but I also bring it up because, and maybe the new Richmond development, there's 6 roads to be named up there, and I would be kind of, I feel quite strongly that we need to make sure we don't get it, we don't have the same kind of stuff happening when that one happens. So to me, that's an important factor, and yeah, 6 roads, it's quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good to flag. Any other comments or questions about items from May public forum?
Yeah, I think that, you know, the board, and we probably are aware, but I think that it would be good for us to just pay a little attention to this situation of water, you know, in our road heap, because we've actually got, you know, 2 things that have happened. But one is that the Central Tarkwa water scheme is now struggling, which actually supplies a huge number of people. And that we've also got the issues about Lake Kalani and just what I said before about the shallow gravel aquifer. So yeah, I just would like to not see this, you know, kind of go past the board without us being involved.
I have asked Mike to keep us in the loop and advise that we'd like to attend meeting.
Yeah,
That they have with the Central Tarkwa water scheme people.
right. Okay.
Yeah, we'll follow up because I haven't actually heard back, so I'll check in with Mike.
Because it is in the context of all the new water regulations.
Yeah.
So Lex is due to meet with Joseph. I don't know if it's just happened or about to happen.
Okay.
About this, about the central part of the scheme.
Okay.
The option. So I think after Rex came here, I rang, I don't know, a week later, you know, just to check in with him, and he hadn't heard from anybody. And I think we can do better as a board about linking in and relating to the people here. So good to contact Mike and stuff in meetings when we come. I think we need to sort of passive, I think. That we need to be making contact with people like Rex to say, you know, what do you need and what's helpful and what's actually happening. So he came because of the them needing to put the UV in, and you know what support does the council staff have available technically or other ways or financially to help with private schemes. And you know, I did talk to him and then talk to him again a bit later, and they had an incident up there you probably know about where the whole thing's collapsed in, so it's actually not workable anymore. So it's gone through limestone, which means it has these little pockets of sand or whatever that can collapse in, and this is what's happened. So they've gone from needing to spend quite a bit of money and deal with the E. coli and to actually it's unworkable now. And so I think it's 50 places and the rec centre and the hospital of that scheme. And I raised it at a meeting at council, can't remember which one, to Mike Schroer about, you know, what support is available for private schemes. And he said, well, essentially, and with this change to the new regime, and he said essentially none, because we're completely, you know, it can only manage what they need to do for council schemes. So it's not like people are going to be able to rock up and help out with money or even much technical advice. So that's a part of it. And so the scheme is now running off films, and Rex was talking about trying to work out whether they can get a permanent arrangement there or not, or so speaking with Joseph about the options about where to bore, so not in limestone. And the point was made to a council that you know, an offer was made for TDC to take over the scheme quite a long time ago, and people didn't want that. So because of the costs or whatever, you know, whatever the reasons are. So that's a part of the equation as well. But I think we need to be more onto understanding what's going on and not so passive.
I think there's a lot of water schemes here in the bay that we probably don't know about, that little ones like that. And I think that's actually important to have, you know, maybe is there a would council have a
Well, the situation.
list of all of those?
Yeah, the situation is that, I mean, I'm not sure if you're aware, and maybe we need to have another presentation about the new water regulations.
It might be a really good idea.
I think probably because as they're actually coming into force, they are starting to become real. You know, I think we talked last meeting, didn't we, Henry, about your scheme. We're all on different water schemes, different types of water, so we all have an experience of this. But how it actually is playing out with the new regulations is something that it would be helpful.
It'd be very useful.
Get there,
I will talk to Jess about getting the right person over for July. That would be really
I
useful.
think we'd all have a conflict of interest if we talked about water schemes. We'd have a conflict of interest on every one of them.
I mean, conflict of interest, just our own experience.
I think getting clear around the, you know, is it Taumata Arowai, that's who's guiding these private schemes about what they need to do now, they're not council schemes. The council don't have a responsibility to them. And my question to Mike was, you know, can we offer guidance technically around the regime change? And he was clear that there isn't the resource to do that. They just don't have the staff and time to do that. So I think we need to be clear about what we're asking for, and from whom and why,
And what our possible role.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. I have a conversation with them.
Even if it's just an informal role.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, any further comments or? Lovely. All right, so the special projects funding meeting was actually really good. I was surprised. It was good. And we've requested some further information from staff. We've had some feedback from Jenny, we're just waiting to hear back from Matt as well, and then we can move forward with a proper, well-informed discussion on whether we want to shift the money around, whether we want to fund a lot of little projects or big projects, but we'll save that for when we have all of our information. So I would like to set a date for a strategic planning workshop to identify how we can be more effective within the Godmere community. So, Chris,
Got a suggestion about that. I think it's important that that's scoped out. It's a scoping happening before that, so we don't rock up and go, oh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna do this. We should do some preparation
Mhm.
and like Kim to come along and Janine
Mm.
and that maybe a scoping of, you know, with you and Grant and
we had a really,
maybe some
sorry.
of us. I'm just talking about
yeah,
this.
yeah, we had a really great discussion with Bern at the last Friday's training. It was actually very good. And he sparked quite a lot of sort of thinking and us all, didn't he?
It was a good reminder that Morawai could do one, and they've got an action plan for the next 3 years, and
Yeah.
they've put that together and so on. So yeah, I think it's that sort of thing that we need to.
Yeah,
Well, I'd still suggest that there's some, you know, some decent planning goes
Oh,
into
yeah,
what
yeah,
the
yeah.
day, what the purpose of it is, and what the agenda would be.
oh yeah,
Totally.
absolutely.
That's what I mean about scoping, and you know, including perhaps looking into, you know, community boards that we might think that are effective and functioning well, and what they're doing
Yeah,
and how
some
they're
case
doing it.
study.
So, you know, it might be that it's you and Grant and somebody else with staff around how to scope that up. So we don't just have a talk fest,
No,
but that we've
absolutely not.
got a straight.
We've talked to
You've got-
Leith as
you've
well
got,
about it.
something going with Vern.
We might link in the code of conduct into that day as well.
It needs to be scoped out.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So it would be good if it wasn't in the next couple of weeks to give us time to get that agenda put together well.
Yeah,
And some prep reading, you know, probably some prep reading, a bit of research into
Yeah.
what others do. It's great to know what we could do.
Yep.
Yeah. So is there, I'm sort of thinking maybe 6 weeks out. Fridays are great for me. I know they're not so great for you, Grant.
no. Any day but Friday, pretty much.
Monday.
Mondays always work well.
Yep. So 6 weeks out from today.
Maybe 24th.
17th.
So we do Monday the 24th of July. Is it fit for people? I can have a chat to come. That working for councillors?
Yeah.
Is it 24th of July? For a strategic planning workshop?
At the stage, I'll go to the local government contract in Christchurch. That's, I think that's the end of it. So it's,
Our diaries get populated by other people,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
it might be free or might not.
Can we blank them out now, so no one else can?
I can't blank out the days. So
Don't put anything in here. If I send out a formal invite, that should populate it for you, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Let's do
One
that
stop other things coming in from the council, and I've got to look at it and go, you
and
know,
judge what.
the river meeting on Wednesdays at the same time as our
At least if we put something in there and someone
workshop,
else,
so
Someone else
Going
might
to
be
this
saying.
clash.
Yeah,
24th is
Prioritise.
free at the moment.
okay, I'll send out a formal invite, hopefully people will see it and go, oh, let's leave that and change our date.
You throw a time,
Well, you also
morning or
have,
afternoon.
I have to
AMD.
check
morning.
with you guys. To see
Yeah.
if it's-
We'll need Kim to the 24th of
24th of
July.
Oh, 24th of July.
That's what you said,
It's
wasn't
the
it?
same
Monday?
as Manafino meeting. that
Oh,
day.
okay,
So I don't think it's good for
no, okay,
me. I can't do it.
no, all right, changing.
busy
it.
today.
We can do it Tuesday,
Tuesdays. fine.
Tuesday work.
No, I'm flying south.
Oh, yes, well, we're getting away. We could do the following Monday. Which would make it the,
Still away. I mean, it's okay if I'm not there. I think, you know, most people are there. It's all good.
so 31st, I think gives us a lot of time. Okay, well, I'll still see an informal invite and hope that.
Yep.
That's fit for you, Cindy, after that. 31st works. Okay, great.
Thanks.
Good. I'll flip that formal invite round and then as we get closer and more planned, there'll be more information flowing from that.
AM or PM.
It'll be AM, I think, probably start 9:30ish. Okay. Oh, and John, I'm so sorry. I completely glossed over and didn't even welcome you to the meeting, so I apologise for that. We'll make up for it now. Welcome, John. It's so nice to have you here with us. I'm terribly sorry. So John's joining us today to provide the board with an update on the LTP conversation.
Yeah, so we've started this. Taking it, do you want me to just start from basics? So
Yeah.
every 3 years we do a 10-year plan. And every 2 years we do an annual plan. So it's all messed up in local government legislation. So we're in the early-ish stages of our long-term plan, which is really our pre-engagement stuff. So we've completed that. It's not closed, but we've done a lot of pre-engagement with the whole of the district. We've been using one-on-ones, digital, all sorts of media to try and get some good response. And our digital response has been really healthy, actually. We've had around 2,000 sort of interactions, which plus all the public meetings and the like that we've held. We sat down and discussed that with council, and I think for me there's some key messaging coming out of that. Was we've been through a stage of building a lot of things because we've had quite a lot of government money coming through, so we've been through that stage with other things, and now we probably just need to just tie ho a little bit and start looking at, correct me if I'm wrong, councillors here, this is my interpretation of the conversation, which was we probably need to start looking after the stuff we built a bit more, and let's, you know, and consolidate a little bit more. But there is equally the desire to invest in some community facilities because it's traditionally been pipes and roads, councils. And we've also got to remember being a unitary that is actually the environmental aspect of our business we need to show due diligence to. So we've just finished that. We'll just put all that information together. I'm happy to share all of that with you, and there's desire for that, and you can see what the community, the wider community, and the Golden Bay community is saying. That would be of value. So I'll get that to you. I think the next stage, and I was excited this morning because we had a bit of a session with Mohura as 2022, which I understand that it's 2 chemicals. I think it's some good but I was really excited to hear that you were having that strategy day, because I think it's really important for this board to set the scene as to what you want to see in the long-term plan. So really interested to see the outcome of that and where you want to head, because fundamentally, and I have a very simplistic view around the long-term plan document, it's a document that shows our community where their investment is going. It's not a strategic document, it's no more than a mere plan document, which has some compliance aspects to which the auditors need to ensure we comply with. So timeline wise, so we're already sort of developing budgets for the next plan, so we can sit down with our elected councillors and start working through this probably little bit this side of Christmas is a number of workshops that we have to go through. There's quite a few policies that we have to relook at. One of them, the biggie coming up, is our finance strategy, which is, I guess, the rules of engagement this council puts on the organisation in terms of things like debt and rates, increase limits, if that is a desire to do that sort of stuff, because key message that came through was affordability, rating affordability. It is massively challenging, having come from the territorial authority to a unitary. The regional council sort of rating element gets a bit lost in here, but as a previous ratepayer in the TA, I get my territorial authority rate thing, and I get a separate bill on the same bill for my regional council, which, funnily enough, added up to basically what we pay around here. So that's the challenge. Massive district, massive pressures on things like roading, etc., etc. So I'm going for a tangent here, but I guess what I'm saying is early stages of long-term plan. When we get that strategic planning thinking, if we can get that moved into the system, really keen to then come back in conversation with you about this once we've observed it. And I guess questions about this.
I'll just start off. Yeah, thanks for that. Because, you know, we are in a funny situation, aren't we? Because we've got 3 waters on the horizon, and that actually takes up, historically, has taken up a huge amount of our, been a big part of our budget in the past. And we've also got the local government review on the horizon a bit further away. So we actually don't know how things are going to look in a few years' time. And are we actually going to be, our council is going to be putting more resources into community-based services, because our 3 waters is going to go at some point, as far as, you know, we have to work on that. So I'm just wondering if you've got, you know, any sort of comment to make about us being in a sort of a holding pattern with our long-term plan.
A wee bit. I mean, for those who don't know, I don't know how well fair the free water stuff is, but I'm going to go pretty base level here. So, as you're probably aware, there was 5 entities. 10.
There's 10 now.
There was going to be bigger economies of scale. Now we've gone top and south, basically. Total. 3 councils, pretty small, in my opinion, pretty small population. Half the size of Tauranga, probably. And the economies of scale, probably we're going to see the bigger entity, probably going to not be the same, I'd suggest. I mean, fundamentally, I think this comes down to your appetite for debt at the end of the day. Still, the affordability issue is going to be there, because you might not be paying for your rates, but you're going to get a bill every year. So you have to be cognizant, I think, of the affordability angle as a council. It should free up debt headroom, but it could free up that anyway, because that's already it's something that the council is here with. This is a debt headroom that you guys have put in place, and I think we're looking at our strategic finance strategy about maybe making that a bit more agile. But I think for me, is my take, and I talked to Kip a bit on the way over about this, is sort of feeling a bit of consolidation a little bit. For some of the reasons I just said, but a bit of consolidation, preparing for that transition to free waters. We're doing some really good planning for these community facilities and actually making sure we're investing in the right areas. So I think you're going to have an opportunity to do a little bit more. I just don't know if it's going to be in the next 3 years. That's what it's said, because it comes down to what ultimately happens when you enter the bank account of that debt and what that means as well. So we're still going to be faced with increased costs. You know, everything's going up in price. And I think council is going to have some hard decisions over the next 3 to 6 years in terms of where their investment goes, and to continue to pay for the services that we provide now, because there's never any desire to remove anything. There's always a desire to sort of do more. So And there's only one place that comes from, debt or basis. But I don't want to, I don't want to put it down with it. I mean, I think for me, a little bit of planning over the next 3 years will go doing it on, and then start actually how you fund it later.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how does the LTP tie in with the TEP? This is the one that's also a long-term strategy. Is there sort of the other people that organising the TEP sort of aware of what's happening with the LTP and vice versa? Sort of working in tent or in coordination.
Different things. So the interaction of the TEP is going to continue for the next 10 years, but that will disappear because obviously the RMA is disappearing. So we're going to have to run two sort of documents together. The interaction of the TEPs in the long term is primarily how you fund say people delivering the TEPs. They're not actually connected. There are some things like growth. There's all the long term plan for the 30-year strategy. So there's some connections, but they're not so connected. One's the RMA, one's the government. And one is just about how you fund those activities, like the TEP.
Yeah.
But it will obviously, if you're planning the growth over here, and we haven't allowed for a new road to go into the auto.
Yeah, that's
About
right. Things like things that could be, in the environment plan. It sort of has to be aware of what's possible with them.
So it's planning here, and then what it does, it feeds into our asset management plan here, which is where the road goes into asset management plan.
Yeah.
Then that feeds into the long-term plan. That's the connection.
Yeah.
When it comes to our regional function, the environment, protection of the environment, that is, the TEP is concerned with that, but there are things that will have to be done that will be generated out of the TEP, and they are things that will have to be funded through the long-term plan.
Yeah, through those activity plans. So
That's right. So that's the crucial link, isn't it? And I think council has not made that link well in the past from the regional functions through to the LTP, and I think that a lot of the environmental protection and biodiversity protection stuff has languished. But since now that the government has put out the national policy statements, which they didn't do before, that's now making us have to actually make a connection and bring gets the funding out of the LTP in order to meet the requirements of the government's national policy statements, quite apart from the technical, quite up together.
Yeah, one of the steps I've brought into the process is business planning. So each of our areas say what's necessary. We're doing it. People think it's another step, but I think what I noticed is exactly that we have that gap. So we've introduced that. We start talking about how the different partners actually connect with each other and how you deliver on our biodiversity objectives, etc. As an example. So I think we're getting a little bit smarter. To get that.
They're two very distinct different processes. So the current TRMP goes through all the rules and policies and things to govern what you can do and what you can't, and that's the sort of world that the TEP is.
Yeah. But the
long-term plan's a whole other mechanism for working out what council's going to do and when and how much.
So they can have profound influence on each other. If there's something that's a goal in the environment plan or a sort of a desired outcome.
A rule or a policy.
It's not so much, I don't think of the TEP as having sort of like where we set goals for council or.
TEP is more is our district.
Right.
But it's sort of-
policy
sort of-
framework and
Yeah.
leads and things.
So it does generate expense.
Yeah, look,
That's
they
what
do
I'm
connect,
saying.
but they do talk to each other as much as others, so they are separate processes, you absolutely all the rights. My assurance is they connect with each other to make sure the client works. So
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. There wasn't that awareness of what was happening. Sort of,
just doing a bit of a diagram and then to try and help people understand that so many of the cases the organization we're just trying sort of try and provide the diagram that illustrates the conceptual.
yeah,
Like you could say everything within council relates to each other, but you know, there's all these streams of processes.
Yeah,
Future
yeah.
Development strategy, long-term plan,
Yeah.
annual plan, TEP, a whole lot of other things,
Mm.
but they're quite distinct, different streams of work.
yeah,
I'd encourage
yeah,
So your,
for
like
purposes.
your work that you do in your consultancy,
Mm.
like, you know,
Yeah.
your biodiversity
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
that is part of the TEP,
Mm.
but it has to be paid for.
yeah,
And that's where it goes into the long-term plan.
Yeah.
And an actual to
and within that, I've seen instances where, you know, the stuff that environmental things that will sort of come, it's council, they've clashed, sort of conflict, being contradictory, you know.
Such as
Well, like
fish
the-
passage.
Yeah, and then
culverts.
developments, you know,
Yeah.
new roads and things that are directly sort of in contradiction with other councils. Yeah, and I'm sure,
Well, it's not the spot.
Yeah.
As you
Which
said.
is one of the motivations for the review of the TRMP is that, you know, there's quite a bit of contradiction within it.
yeah,
So yes, I mean, it'd be good to see the outcome of your strategic day, so we
Yeah.
can make sure. that-
Would you like to come to the strategic
Yeah.
day?
I'd love to.
Can invite
I'm in
you.
Canada, unfortunately.
Oh,
But I would have loved to have been, and.
yeah, we'll definitely keep
Yeah.
really good notes and
middle of the
So there I
night.
go now, well, my family, but there you go. But yeah, really keen to see that, because we want to make sure we connect.
Yeah.
You know, what we're thinking is. with things like that.
Yeah, when, just through the chair, when do we have our next part, when do we play our next part in the long-term plan as a community?
Well, I reckon when I come back, when you've done your piece of work, I could maybe, I don't know, if you'll have another session, you come back with some team.
Yeah.
I'll just work through it with you guys and just.
it'd be
see
great. When are you back?
I'm back, I think, the second week of August, sometime. Just the week after, actually. Big one.
You know, it might be at the strategy day that, you know, one of the things that's considered is the way in which the board effectively makes its input into what they want to see in an annual plan and a long-term plan. Yeah, it's not as a submitter, you know, but sort of teeing up some sort of process where the board gets to have a say around the way that council might be going, some things that relate to here. You know,
Yeah.
that there's a we have, you know, have a lot of input into that, but you know, how the board gets involved in those processes. Instead of seeing a long-term plan come out and go, oh, bloody hell, we've got to wait till then to do that part. You know, but actually that really informed and in a position to, you know, sort of try and get things happening here. So we don't feel like the processes that are happening away from us.
Yeah,
And then we submit as a submitter, which has happened in the past, I think.
yeah, and there's a real
Fully
ownership
submitter.
that goes along with that.
Yeah, I agree with that, because at the end of the day, I would like to be able to say, we supported this,
Mm.
and also
Why?
then be able to explain why it's been
Yeah.
pushed out for 3 years. Because to have that understanding of what's going on in the background,
Yeah.
it's really
Definitely.
helpful when we're talking to people in the community. Otherwise, it's just, oh, we would have liked it to happen in 2024, but fortunately, it's not going to happen in 2030 or whatever.
Yeah,
We
that
don't know
real.
why.
Any more for John? Or any more for us?
Just not to do the LTPM for example. So you're aware of the rec centres events
Contract.
contract is inspired. They're going to continue carrying out that part of the contract. You're aware of that?
Mhm.
I think Julia, has been here.
Yeah.
She's doing a bit of work in the background to find the husband that they work and jump and help with it. But I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that. The
Yeah.
contract's gone.
It will be a real shame because not only was it events for the community, it was holiday programs. It was.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they'll still run some of their after school events for the kids.
I'm not sure. I just see we got a note saying we won't continue on with it.
Okay.
So look, we're doing a pretty good review, I think, in that same plan anyway, to have a look at some of this stuff. I did catch up Ed, who's the new CEO of Sports Tasman the other day, and I think he's coming from a slightly different business around participation, and he's got a very different philosophy than the previous CEO. Which was less about percentage, more about programs and what it was. So, but Julia, just to give some comfort, Julia was trying to do some good backgrounds, trying to get this back.
Yeah, Chris.
When you and I had a share about this, I asked whether we were going to sit down with the rec centre board and just to see if leader comes over don't want to renew the contract. We had a meeting about, because of being, when Tom left and Laura left, they made very clear around things that weren't very workable in terms of the contract and their view. And I've assumed that we would sit down with the board, staff would sit down with the board and say, what is workable here.
I have been in touch with the board, they're giving us some dates to work on.
Right.
Unfortunately, I think it's one, right? So I'm trying to reach that. I think it's some fun. I mean, who's on the
Media.
Media.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of work to do in that area. So follow sort of event, all the events, etc. What council puts into it, what doesn't. So that like I said, that I have made contact with the committee chairs and the joint chair, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's important that staff or council understand, what hasn't been workable, what just, and if there's any way to sort of move with that, and if we are, contacting others around finding other providers, I think we need to balance that really carefully.
So
Would be my advice.
can I just ask for clarification? I'm aware of the contract and the ending, but if it ends and nothing happens, I'm just wondering what does that mean for the centre? Does it mean?
Yeah,
Oh.
well, there'll be no programs right.
So it'll just be a facility for
The
hire.
centre will still be operated by
Yeah.
the committee, so there's a separate
Okay,
fund to then open it.
yeah,
So the
close it.
sports groups will still have
Yeah,
use.
so all that carries on.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
the things like holiday programs, etc. which
Right.
They
Okay.
won't run.
Yeah.
So
After
community
that.
events, centre parade,
Yes.
things like that, won't,
Okay, got it.
unless some other community group picks up that funding.
So could I ask, what's the situation with Tom? Like,
He left.
he left.
Yeah.
He
Quite a while
left.
ago.
Is he gone?
No, he's still here.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
he just was.
He's the Commodore of the Oakland.
Yeah, I know, but he just was such an asset.
He made when he left, he wrote a very clear piece about what's not workable and what's wrong. So really it's gone from being, when Dave Miley had 12 hours a week or 15 hours
Yeah.
a week at Walmart Social Services, and it got transferred, pretty much just went there to there. But it doesn't work up there that much. I mean, you've got a whole lot happening sometimes and not much others, and
Yeah.
it doesn't work as a contracted role.
Yeah.
So the information's there, very clear, and from Laura about what's not been
Yeah.
workable. So I'd like us to go through that with the board,
As a board, you said?
with the board.
With the board.
Excellent, thanks, John. That was a good update. Okay, so if that's everyone happy, we'll move on to our next agenda item. John, if you could. Cool. All right, so we're on to the request for the letter of support. So you'll all be aware of the staff article highlighting the need for pensioner accessible housing in the Bay. So Chris Benner has requested a letter of support. He's attached sent us one through that was provided by Mokoa Social Services. I'm happy to open up discussion on that. Celia.
Yeah, this is, there is a policy in the TRP which covers off the situation of flood-prone land that is not zoned for development. And that it is rural A, which is that's what it is, and it's flood-prone. And this policy says that uses the word avoid, so council has to avoid development in those places. And this is the policy that has been brought out quite late in the piece in this, which appears to trump the other policies, so that there's no opportunity for litigation. I don't know whether you've got a comment or not, but who does the TRMP and consents and all that? Yeah, it's just you.
Yeah, well, the planning framework is managed by John's team, and then the implementation of it is managed by my team. So we're talking about a consent application.
Yeah. So this is unfortunate because they did a lot of work in the early stages of the application to mitigate what they thought other policies would allow them to do. And then then there was this other policy brought up, which appears to actually say that none of those other policies don't apply, and where there is a flood risk of this degree and the land is not zoned for residential, then it's a board. That's my understanding of it. I don't know if you've got any.
Well, just in terms of process, there's an ongoing conversation between the consenting team and the applicant.
Yeah.
And the applicant has come back with some material that might open the door for the situation to be reviewed in a more favourable light, and that's still live. I guess the key thing here is around, there's a thing about it in principle, and then secondly about to what extent you can look at a particular site given those constraints.
That's where we're at.
Yeah.
I think initially there was a sort of a yellow light given, not a green light, but a yellow light, and certainly not a red light. So it's gone to this extent, and then I think it's post Cyclone Gabrielle, which has given the sort of more of a red light look at the moment. Change it in that respect. So I think there is support for the letter. It's something that I would like to put forward. However, it sort of also goes against what the council process is. So it puts us in an awkward position because we would be going against council policy to actually have a letter of support. But then it's at the same time, I do want to support a project like this, but he hasn't asked it for a specific place, from what I understand, in the letter. I support the concept of pensioner flats, but maybe location is the key issue here. That is what boils down.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful. I think it's a no-brainer that we support any housing pensioners or anybody really. So I think my question is, what's the purpose of the letter, and to what end, for what? So we have to be careful. So there's an RMA process going on, there's a consenting process going on, and our policies haven't changed since the cyclone. So and the the consenting team's doing, there's been very good process with Chris and,
Yeah.
all the way through, and there hasn't been a point where there's been, it's not like the processes don't work where staff will say to an applicant or, oh yeah, this is gonna be all good, sure, you're gonna, look, it doesn't work like that. There are things to work through around, what's allowed and where it's allowed and where it's not. So if we think that we're gonna write a letter of support in the hope of, giving the consenting team a nudge, well, that's dreadful, naive and bad. So.
That's the old.
So, so
Much better behaved now,
if what we're doing is, just a general letter of support to say we support,
which we've done in the past.
I think we've done that already.
We absolutely have.
So we have to be very clear about what we're doing.
Yes.
And in terms of the consent process, the applicant or an applicant can still continue to go down a road. They feel like they can mitigate and probably end up with commissioners, probably, like that would be a probable process. And if they can show that they can mitigate, then people argue about the interpretation of the rules. That's a whole thing that's going on, and we have no influence over whatsoever.
And my sense is that the consent team and everybody in council is working really hard with Chris to make this project a success and a safe success. So, Robert.
As she says in the agenda, that is to include in an application to central government.
Yes.
So I believe it's to, I can't remember exactly what the scheme is, but there was a scheme in one of the government departments about helping to fund social housing or affordable housing, one of those, I think, and Chris has applied for that. So I believe the letter that we're writing is actually for
Thanks to
central
you.
government.
Yeah, they've been shortlisted for $3 million.
Yes.
But it's specifically for St. Muse, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not.
That is
It's specifically that Riley Street area.
correct. Because, and,
Yeah.
Well, I would say with that in mind, that if it's not going to the council, there are still pathways open, potentially, we're working through it and make it a success, then that would be something. Support writing a letter to, if there's a specific fund that he's applying to from central government. As long as we're not sort of contradicting processes that are going on in the
Yes,
background,
with the council, yeah.
but I mean, it doesn't preclude us.
No, it's not going to council, it's going to central government. Yeah.
It doesn't preclude us writing a letter.
Yeah.
For that particular purpose.
Mhm.
What is it?
That was my understanding. It's not going to council. So I'd be happy to support that, as long as it meets Tasman District Council planning and resource.
Should
consent.
Should the application prove to be successful,
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're not going to fund something, are they? Unless
no,
are they? I don't know if they're going to fund something. I wouldn't imagine unless it's going to go ahead, and it won't go ahead without the consent.
that's correct.
So, and I think Tremail's letter of support. That's for the same purpose, eh?
Yes.
So
That was the one I read.
that wasn't sort of,
That one is for unreserved support.
and I just didn't get that it related to that financial application, but perhaps it does. And as a result of having read this letter from Tremail, Catherine Hubbard was quite aghast to read it and has written an article that's on the website now.
Yes.
The website. So this is sort of generating some other things, And it does raise for me anyway, not the other place to talk about that, but just the Tremail's letter and the article. Let's raise questions around the type of housing that some people are living in here in the Bay that will not be legal.
No,
And I don't know what council's role is in that. Anyway, that might be another stuff. But it's one thing to hear, you know, we know that people live in unlined sheds and containers, and I know people who are living in containers, and you know, it's terrible. And you can get authorities to chase along, and you know, be kicked out, and you know, and there are people taking a lot of money from people living in dreadful housing situations, and it just seems not enough to. Oh, that's terrible, isn't it?
mm,
And I think that one of the factors about this is that there's a time frame for the government funding.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. Because they're not, he's not going, consent's not going to get through in time for that deadline for the government funding. That's the issue. I think that's an issue. But it was, as long as, I think that as far as the government concerned, as long as there was progress through the process. But then what happens if
That's why I think that Kim said unreservedly. I don't think we can use that. I think we have to be a little bit more careful in our response to it with a letter. It's not necessarily, yeah, like I said before, it's not specifically the place. I'm just in two minds about it, really. I feel like we need to support a venture such as this, but not necessarily.
I think we can certainly support, write a letter of support should the resource and planning consent conditions of TDP be met. Put that in.
yeah, but are we actually going? Is that position we want to take? That we start make it conditional on consent? I think that the government will make that decision themselves.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
So, but I do agree with Brian that we don't have to too
No, going against policy when
But aren't we just simply supporting? Aren't we just simply supporting the trusts want to, application to construct the units? We're not saying we'll put them in Riley Street or against council wishes. We're just simply supporting the project. We don't get to say whether or not they meet consent conditions.
Yeah, I think that would be, that would mean that we're not tied to that particular application.
I mean, I'm certainly happy to draft up a letter and send it round for everybody's input, and then put it back, send it out, and then we'll do that relatively quickly. Jess, I think, would we not?
What's the government agency?
I'm just trying to
Would have
work
been
it out.
helpful, I think.
Yeah,
to put in there.
I should know this, but I've been
He
out of
does.
this
He does
before.
say it in the letter. It's
In Chris's document.
yeah. I'm sure I read it.
But yeah, anyway, I just know, I can't remember the name, but I know there was actually 3 rounds of funding. There was 3 rounds of funding, so if the first round is finished. And last year they were talking about the second round coming to a close, and
It's the infrastructure.
was it this year?
It's the infrastructure acceleration fund, isn't it?
No,
it's not that one.
no, it's not that.
I just
I'm
can't
sure I
see.
read it somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't.
But perhaps we could ask Chris for an update,
Yeah, he's heading on to
a
Canada.
brief update.
No, it's ring them. I ring them.
It's going tomorrow.
Yeah,
They've just gone.
Everyone is leaving.
Everyone's going to Canada.
Yeah.
I'm just sure I'm avoiding smoke.
No,
Sarah, was Chris's, you know, the letter, or the email that he wrote to the board requesting a letter of support, is that here?
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking for it too.
Probably just. Oh, wait,
Seem to be.
I'll find it.
We're looking for-
We've just got Chris. Here we go. Hi, Jess. I would be grateful if the community board would kindly provide a letter of support for our proposed pensioner/disabled flat development on Riley Street. This would be included in an application for government. So it doesn't really say much more than
Good to have a bit more detail, so that we
Yeah.
know that we're writing to
so
someone
who we're writing to.
specifically, or.
Yes.
Sure.
I thought that-
Because the other one's an open letter to anyone.
Yeah, it is.
Kia ora koutou. So, it's,
Yeah,
and then unreserved support, so for what?
Who social services, yeah.
Yeah, it's from them, but to an unnamed.
so if an application is going to an agency,
Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, I believe. Is
Well,
the agency.
yes, I think.
but you know, for us to get an email saying, you know, some details about actually the application is for this, the amount is that amount of money. Closing date is here, and if you could support that, that's great, but I suppose what's being suggested here is something just general, like, yeah, which is less impactful. We need to write something that's got a bit more oomph than just a general, yeah, great project, and we support any application that goes to any government outfit for money. I encourage us to be more specific.
I agree.
Yeah, Celia's just gone to see if she can get hold of Chris.
So I just need to make a quick call.
Or push pause for a minute.
Right.
Yeah, it's very tricky because there's absolutely need for affordable housing and
I would
done it
say,
the right way.
you know, Chris has obviously got a lot of energy and putting a lot of work into it. So it's-
Amazing amount.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think, you know, any encouragement, support we can.
Yeah.
It does raise that wider question of the housing
Yes.
issue, doesn't it? And the landlord's charging a lot of money for substandard accommodation.
I've had seen the headlines, you know, can you afford gigs? You know.
Don't
you
even.
know,
Exactly.
You know,
housing, the pension flex go ahead. Don't go ahead because blah, 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 which is kind of what the headline was in a way.
are we having a special brief?
Refresh break on you.
Oh, I suppose we could. All right, let's have an official pause for everyone.
Thank
5
you.
minutes.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Have we paused it? Brief meets and Celia, you have some
Yeah, so
information for us.
as regards the letter, it is a letter of support for about the general need for housing and the level of deprivation and pay. So it's not supporting this particular development. It is the Affordable Housing Fund, what it's for, and it's under the Ministry of Housing.
Good boy. Ministry of, sorry, Housing and Urban Development.
Development, and the they will be applying on the 8th of August.
Oh, so we do have a little bit of time
So
here.
we've got a little bit of time. Yeah, but it isn't tied.
To the Riley Street, right,
the
so
Riley
apologies, that's incorrect in the agenda,
Yeah, so
it was unclear,
that makes it more
because
straightforward.
his email was referring to Riley Street as well, I think, but anyway, that's all good, we're good to clarify, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, so that makes it much easier for us.
Does.
Would we want, usually when I've written letters of support, I see the application, or I see the, you know, here's my application, here's the outline of it, and would you write a letter of support? So if it's not till August, Chris is a pretty productive guy, it'll just be helpful, I think, we're going to support it, we'll do whatever we can to support this. I just think processes are important.
So
We're going to write a letter of support to something that hasn't happened yet.
You should know what it's
Application
Yeah,
hasn't happened.
so because what he's given us is the market assessment,
not a particular spot.
yeah, of a spot, so why don't I go back to
I
Chris?
didn't even know how much money it's for. Or,
So you'll need to do it today, Abby, because he's going tomorrow.
Okay,
Going on a bike race. across Europe.
For how long?
After the bike race.
4,000, some of those races are 4,000 K.
Okay, I'm just thinking, you still have to submit an application.
Okay. That's fine. Oh, we will do that. That makes it very clear. Thank you. That was a good call, Celia. Okay. So that is good. I was scrolling up. We've done that. So that brings us to the find out my things not as fast as my finger, but it's okay. It's still fun. Until I get sick of it. The action sheet. Thank you, Jess. The word would not come up. I was desperately scrolling, trying to find it. Action sheet. So the first item on our action sheet is the Mohoa 2042 document being adopted as an official board strategy document. So last action was the meeting with the key authors of the document scheduled to take place, which has taken place. So there are some feedback from that.
Yeah, it was a productive meeting, and one of the things I think that we spoke about is not to adopt it, and rather, I'm just looking for a word. I wrote it down here. There we go. Endorse. So to endorse the strategy, and it sort of comes in. It would be nice for the whole board to see the strategy again, because this is a new board, and this came onto the agenda back when we were during the last board. So it'd be nice to have the new board officially see this.
Would you be happy to send that round again, or we'll add it into July?
And maybe have Reggie and Debbie come and speak and just present that again in a way that the new board can also see. I think that's kind of what
Great idea.
we would like to see happen.
So would you like me to contact Reggie and Debbie?
Yeah, do it officially from you, yeah, sure.
Cool.
And there's a few things that can come of it, but it's about it sitting sort of side by side.
With what?
With council, with sitting side by side with council in a way that is just trying to see help me out.
There was two angles to it, wasn't
Yeah.
there? The one is that the community board was looking to develop its strategy.
Yeah, that's right.
And so in this context, it was potential to advance the strategy as something that could be endorsed and referenced against when the community board is pulling its strategy together. But secondly, also that the Mohoa strategy is still growing, and it's still morphing, and it's still gathering in other initiatives that it's basically related to. And a couple of examples that come up in there with the way the Mohoa project is aligned to the strategy, and also from a council context, the catchment-based initiatives that are now firmly sort of taking shape across the region, and the two catchments being in this district, and the recent government announcement of freshwater farm plans being a means by which we can start to see actions on land bind into a broader strategy. So Debbie was very much of the view that there was more work to be done and will continue to be done in the Mohoa strategy, as council said about doing its business, and it could morph as the trust that effectively took action on behalf of the community for various parts of it. And having a trust structure that those who did find ways of bringing funding to the table and locking it into a trust seemed to be attractive to them.
The Mohoa Trust.
The Mohoa 2042 is
As
now
a
a trust
strategy,
now.
which is now
Yeah,
trust.
I understood it.
Yeah.
So that trust would be the place where funding could potentially come and.
Because of the difficulties of so many, of actually establishing a trust in its own right for each and every initiative. The offering that we're starting to morph to is that the Mohoa 2042 strategy could become a trust that houses bunch of community initiatives which are aligned to the work that the strategy is talking
An
about.
example was used, which was quite good. That was like, for instance, composting toilets. Lots of people want to use composting toilet. Would like to, and the general view of the public is like, oh, too hard basket, don't want to go there. But if a meeting, if something can happen where we have a public meeting with people who are interested in that sort of, and we go through the workshop and say, well, you tick these boxes to get it through council, then it's going to take away a lot of that difficulty that people seem to think, and so it fits in with the whole strategic plan of sustainability. That's where that comes from. I don't know if I explained that quite well enough, but so that's where it sits alongside the council or community board.
So that action can come off and we'll have Debbie and Reggie come along and we'll take us through it.
So I think it sounds, is it along the lines of the Tasman Environment Trust model? Do you know about that model? The
Yeah, we
TET model,
do.
which is where TET is like a broker,
Yeah,
and that they actually support the smaller individual initiatives. Maybe it's not like that, but it's. I'm just
It is
wondering
a little
if
bit like
there's
that,
a
yeah.
similar concept.
it
And
is.
also the Motueka Catchment Collective, for instance,
Yes.
and how that would,
Yeah.
that model could also fit into this context. So I think it was seen that there were other
Yeah.
operating models across the region that could fit
Yeah.
into this. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess the main point we took out of the discussion is it's not a formed strategy. It's a development strategy. And the idea being about repackaging it and bringing it back to this community board, noting that certain things have been adjusted and other things were being incorporated, and to get you to see it as something that you would refer to as you set about discharging your obligations.
Because I did actually, sorry.
No, you go.
At the time of us then talking to us about it, I said I was really unhappy with the health stuff being in there. And because it's got everything in it, I said that was just going down a very difficult road because there were very conflicting input into it on health, pro-vaccination or anti-vax and stuff like that. So I'd like to see it more, focused into areas where they can actually achieve something. So,
Chris.
Yeah. I think it's it seems like a sort of simple thing to do, but I think it's much more complex. And I think that the purpose of the presentation, again, because we've seen it and read it and sort of been glowy, and if it's to show the update to newer developments in it, I get that. If it's to present it to new board members, and that's good. But if the purpose of it being presented is to try and garner an endorsement, a formal endorsement by the board, we're on different ground. And I wouldn't want us to consider doing that without some, staff advice and report around what are the things that we endorse or not. What are the ramifications of that? What does it mean? What is it, like it's easy to give your public support to something, but if you look at that whole document and all the things in it, there's things in there that I agree with and go, oh, that's great, and other things I'd go, it doesn't really, I don't think that's something I'd want the board to particularly endorse. For me, in general, it's not sort of there hasn't been a broad enough input and involvement by the broader Golden Bay community and communities, like there's so I think there are concerns for me around that. We could endorse it because it's great, and it is a lot of it's good. It's a good initiative and people are working hard at it and fantastic, but to formally endorse something is another matter altogether. And I'd want us to receive advice about what that would mean. And
Can I just check, Grant? Have you got a mana whenua representative on your trust, or is it up now?
No,
So it's not, you haven't worked with Mana Whenua to develop this.
we did initially. We had some feedback from them and they said, "No, we're too busy to do much more than this."
Yeah, and I hear what Chris says, and I think if they came along on, and I can make that quite clear now, it would be to present the information. And they could certainly request the endorsement, but I think it would go back to a discussion.
Yeah, so
It wouldn't be,
what would be if they were wanting it to be indoors, because I think that's what we were looking at earlier on about adopting it or something, weren't we, language like that. And what's behind that? But you know, it's a different thing to like what people are doing, encourage it. And it's a good idea, but then to, you know, see that. Yeah.
okay. All right. Any further comments on that? Good, so I'll get in contact with Reggie and
Do you want to send them that letter around?
or
About what we could see from what the board is. Because we're moving away from adoption, endorsing, but into there's some sort of like
could I
something
have
else.
some nice wording?
Yeah, I just sort of thinking, something maybe that John and I'll talk about, bringing some suggestions back to you.
That sounds great. And then we can feed that back. Thank you. Excellent. Okay, so next is, sorry,
Is an expectation of agenda item at some point.
sorry
so-
for the presentation or?
No, for post the presentation, there was a conversation there around, you know, wanting to know the ups
Yeah,
and
up
downs of
and
it.
down. Yes,
Yeah.
A
So
report,
expectation
yeah.
is,
A report. Thank you.
And it's certainly if it goes to strong language.
Yeah.
And then it's just to the extent that the board is being asked to buy into something, I think would help define the nature of that
Yeah.
report.
Yeah, and what that would mean, wouldn't it? So what?
Yeah, so it's a little bit about what
Yeah.
can the board do once it's repackaged and represented.
We wouldn't really want to, you know, not against it at all, but I just feel uncomfortable. If we took it to the Lions Group, the strategy, and we took it to Federated Farmers, we took it to Mana Whenua Ki Mōgoro, we took it to the Mangarako community, to
something else.
So we have-
Golden Kids, you know, the school boards, and said, you know, read through this and what do you make of it?
Mm.
And if all those groups, well, we give our ringing endorsement, you know, but still there's a question about why we want to order, so.
Yeah. and what purpose it serves. Okay, so staff to investigate the, how are we going with that, Jess?
We're just waiting on the
Star-
camera arrival.
Yeah, waiting on Starlink, so might as well just leave that there till it arrives.
We've got that, but the other bits we're waiting.
Oh, the bits. Request for approval of new street name. That can probably come off because it'll be included in our agenda once it's finalised, won't it? And then the chair report, so that was a service request to improve the maintenance level of the Pohara. Have we had any feedback from that, Jess? Can we bump that again? Give it a nudge, see what's happening here? Just a response would be great. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the chair's report. So I'm happy to move that be accepted. Can I have a second, please? Seconded by Deputy Chair Knowles. All those in favour? Lovely, thank you. And the financial summary. Happy to take that as read unless there are any burning questions regarding our finances. Not looking. Okay, everybody happy with the financial report? Excellent. Well, that actually brings our, oh, I better move it there, sorry, my bad. Can I have a mover that the, oh no, we do it, we need to accept it, no, we don't, do we? Financial, I always forget now. I don't need to move it. Yes, we do, it's still a report, isn't it? Yeah, okay, so. Can I have a mover?
I'll move it.
Right, moved by Robert that we accept the financial report. Can I have a second?
Yeah.
Seconded by Henry. All those in favour?
Bye.
Great,
Aye.
thank you.
There should be a resolution.
There should be, shouldn't there? If we have to accept it, it's where I was.
There's no resolution.
No resolution,
No,
it's
there
just
should be
a,
one.
oh, we've done it, we're good. We're good. Here is it,
It was loaded as an information report, no decision required,
yes,
which is why that has.
why they haven't pre-populated that, no, it's all good, we called it, we're good. So that actually brings us to the end of our meeting. Okay, so we'll just close with karakia from Robert and Chris.
Sorry.
Like,
Apana ki tātou. Kia ora, te marino. Kia whakapapa, hauna me te moana. Aroha atu, aroha mai. Tēnā tātou, tēnā tātou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, I'll quickly email Chris so we get that before he goes. On the